I'm gonna start losing some weight.
I'm gonna start losing my marbles. Yep, Marco, set it off, bro. What are you gonna talk about?
Today we're gonna talk about increasing your bottom line profits from Rob Solem, the man, the myth, the legend.
Marco Blise. Yeah. So, welcome everybody to our second video, and we're gonna start with bottom line profits. There's so many ways in this industry to maximize your profits, and I'm going to think of where to start. I think we're going to start with equipment. So, with that being said, when I say equipment, I mean rental equipment. You want reliability and affordability. You don't want too much horsepower because it's going to cost you a fortune to insure. And you don't want something that is going to put your customers in a position where they're not safe either. So you have to find like a median, basically right down the line with good, affordable equipment, but not over the top. We don't need to spend $80,000 on a pontoon, and we don't need to spend, $100,000 on a ski boat. A couple brands that I like the most with the boat rental industry would be Glastron, Vectra, which is a Starcraft product. I wouldn't recommend Bayliner. Am I allowed to say that?
You did. You did. So
yeah, too late. So with that being said, Glastron is probably your most affordable, best built outboard ski boat available for your rental fleet. I would say in the nation.
How about we shift gears a little bit real quick and just have a little more introduction. So prior to hitting record, we were talking about some dealers and stuff like that. Maybe we can just chat a little bit more and then hop into some suggestions.
Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to think from a whole like universal perspective all the way around as far as UTVs. UTVs and snowmobiles are going to be priced about the same. You're going to get your most margin of savings, I think, in the boat industry. Because don't you guys think that? Like there's not a whole lot of difference like in snowmobiles and UTVs.
It seems to me that everyone's renting UTVs, whether it's like in the Midwest or out West, they're all using the Can-Am Mavericks or the Polaris four-seater Razors. So I think like that industry is pretty streamlined based on Polaris Adventures being out there. Can-Am does a great job of doing rental fleets for all the dealers. So I think that's pretty streamlined. But once you get into boats, I think the pontoon boats is probably a huge thing, like you were saying on the horsepower. Like what is a sweet spot for horsepower on just a normal pontoon cruising boat without a tri-tune or, pulling capabilities?
Yeah. And those are good points, Marco. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So yeah, I do agree. I think everything is kind of streamlined as far as pricing is concerned, especially on the UTV side of things. So let's go ahead and focus on the boats. And let's bring out a specific boat, like the pontoon boat. So if you're just cruising, my ideal horsepower, believe it or not, is 40 horsepower. I love the 40 horsepower Mercury Bigfoot. It does a great job. If you put it on a 25-foot TMC boat, which is made right in Poskin, Wisconsin, you can get a beautiful one for about $27,000. It'll actually put that boat at right around 19 to 22 miles per hour, full capacity, which is 13 people. And then if I am going to pull a skier or a tuber behind a pontoon that is not a tri-tune, I do like the 90 or the 115 Mercury Bigfoot. It seems like low horsepower, but it will do the job. So I do like to focus on that. That whole rig with the motor from TMC is going to be right around, with the larger horsepower, right around $29,000. So you can actually get two quality boats for the price of one if you choose to go with a vendor like TMC, a local manufacturer based right out of the Midwest. So I always thought that was pretty cool. It's getting serious.
Not good boating weather today.
Yeah, not good boating weather at all. But as far as profits are concerned, when it's built into your unit, I think it's super important that you're not spending out of control money, okay? Because your renters are not going to respect your equipment like you do. Nobody ever does. So if you go out and you buy a $50,000 or $60,000 Bennington and you're hoping to gain business because you have an upper level boat in your fleet, that'll last for about 1 year. And then your fleet's going to start to deteriorate because it is a depreciating product and it's going to get beat up. And then you're going to have to spend more to maintain it. And it's just going to keep costing you and costing you. My ideal sweet spot is to get a pontoon boat under 30,000 with the horsepower that you want, run it for 3 years, and then sell it. There's two ways you can do it. You can sell a boat online or Craigslist. If you do have a showroom or whatever, you sell used boats. People will obviously come in and walk the floor and be able to look at purchasing an item from you that way. There's also wholesalers out there that will come and purchase your whole entire fleet, whether it's snowmobiles, UTVs, personal watercraft, or boats. And they'll be able to take that off your hands at the end of the year. Now, the dream scenario from a gentleman, Kyle, that I used to work with in Canada, he would actually wire me the money on my entire fleet, let me run it for a whole another summer, and then pick it up the fall after. So that's also a way to do it if you're looking to get rid of your whole fleet and replace it all at the same time. And that probably all depends on what your tax situation is. So the more depreciation you have on your equipment, the less tax you're going to pay to the IRS. So that's always a great thing. Keep in mind, though, if you do go to sell your business, you're going to eat it in the capital gain side of things because of your depreciation schedule. So I guess it all depends on what your future looks like and how long you want to be in the game as far as rentals are concerned.
So Rob, you've been doing this for decades now, like renting boats and whatnot. And the one thing that I've noticed with a lot of our early customers in the booking engine is that some folks have a very consistent fleet where they're all the same model, maybe like a year or two different, but they're all relatively the same. And on the flip side, some people just have a hodgepodge of whatever they found on Craigslist themselves. And so in the time that you've been in the boat rental business, what have you experienced with that? There's obvious benefits to either side. You could get a cheap cost fleet, but if they're all the same, there's probably a lot of benefits that way too. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a lot of people out there that are running the quote hodgepodge rental fleet, they're probably buying a lot of used products, right, to try to save some money. So they might have a Starcraft deck boat in their fleet and they want to add another deck boat because they're popular. So then they go out and they purchase a Hurricane deck boat, those types of things. I personally prefer having a uniform fleet. So if I'm going to run 12 pontoons, they're all going to be TMC. If I'm going to have another 12 ski boats in my fleet, they're all going to be Glastron, and so on, for personal watercraft and fishing boats, UTVs or snowmobiles. And the reason I say that is because the renter is going to wonder why somebody else was able to rent a different product. So if you have 12 different boats and he's going to call or she's going to call and request a certain boat from you, like, oh, I don't want the Glastron, I want the Tahoe with the 150 outboard on it. And you're going to be like, I don't have that one available, it's rented. So if you have a uniform fleet, it's real simple. All our boats are either booked or yes, we have that one available. All our UTVs are either booked or yes, we have that one available. Nobody's getting a better product. Nobody's getting what they think could be a better product or less of a product. And that just kind of steers you away from any complications you might have when dealing with a customer, especially if they think they know what they want and what they don't want. So
Marco, with that said, you've been in the sale side of boats and that whole industry. When it comes to the benefits of buying all of the same, is there any what are some tips that you would have in purchasing this fleet?
Well, I assume if you have the same fleet, the replacement parts are more readily available. As Rob was saying, I'm assuming there is quite a bit of maintenance on the fleet, whether it's lower units, props, probably the same issues with the whole fleet if they are the same. probably streamline some of the parts coming in, take the boat out of the fleet, get the part in, put it back into the fleet, rather than waiting a couple months on trying to find, special parts for each boat. I was going to ask Rob if there was a benefit of, when you have your own fleet, are you able to buy factory direct, whether it is Starcraft or Viaggio, or I know TMC you can. If you do put in an order for 12 or 14 boats, are you able to be a dealer for that? Is that a benefit?
Yeah, as far as being a dealer, I always stayed away from it. I think for some people that is probably a benefit. I do know that there's a lot of manufacturers out there that will let you purchase volume amounts from them directly. And then there is an upside to that. If you do become a dealer, then you can get your Mercury and Yamaha and, your Honda outboard and all that stuff designated dealership. So you can get on the computer to diagnose your equipment and those types of things, which come in handy. However, there is such thing as a floor plan, which is usually financed through a company like GE. So if you're buying, 14, 15 boats all at one time, specifically from one manufacturer, like 15 pontoons, you're easily going to have $500,000 to $700,000 sitting there, right? So you have two choices. You can go to a bank and hopefully they'll do a floor plan for you, or you go through GE, which is a little bit higher interest, or you pay cash. And that's your third option, I guess. Buying 14 boats at a time to build a fleet and say you have 50 boats, I just wouldn't recommend it. I think that's a lot of juice for a company to take on right away and bite off at one time. For your first rental fleet, right? As you get into your first rental fleet and you start to flip your boats over, if you're generating income and you have a booking status and your calendar is full and you want to get rid of 14 to buy 14 more, then it would be okay. But I think as a startup, that's just a lot of weight to go out and grab that many boats at one time, whether it's an independent deal that you make with a dealership that will actually sometimes sell you a boat for less than a manufacturer will, just because they've been in business longer and they're probably doing a larger volume than you are, or just going out and purchasing. I'm not having a great day on the video, man. It's pretty crazy weather out here. Anyways,
you're doing great. I only need to cut out that part.
Yeah, totally. Anyways, we'll just keep it there for now.
So you'd recommend going to your local dealer and basically say, hey, I'm looking to buy, 5 or 6 boats for my rental fleet. Yeah, that would be the best bet as a small rental business.
Yep, that's the way I would do it. So I used to work with Boat Sport out of Eagle River, Wisconsin. I would go in there and buy 6 or 7 fishing boats at one time, or 4 or 5 Glastron ski boats at one time. I always dealt directly with the owners there. They had wonderful service. That's the problem, right? So if you go directly to a manufacturer and you're not qualified or certified service in, whatever motor you're running, whether it's Mercury or Yamaha or Honda or Suzuki, whatever it is, you're going to have a hard time getting parts and being able to service that product, even if you have a certified mechanic in-house, because to get manufacturer direct parts when you're not a dealer is a big deal, right? So the best thing to do is just run the boat for 3 years, buy from a local dealer, and use the warranty to your advantage, right? So if the boat breaks or the motor breaks, or you blow a motor up, or you take out a lower unit, the customer can still pay for it, but you can still warranty that, and you can still get service. So if you have a facility out there that sold you the boat and they have the help on hand, where it's like, hey, I have a boat down. A lot of times if it's local enough, they'll come grab the boat for you, bring it back to their facility, fix the boat, and maybe even have it back to you the next day. You're not going to get that kind of customer service buying directly from a dealer. They pre-rig the boats. They send them to you.
From the manufacturer.
From the manufacturer.
Directly.
I apologize.
Perfect.
Yes. Thank you, Marco. So you're not going to get that same service.
So one of the things that I think about from like a marketing standpoint when you're trying to rent out this fleet is that having a consistent fleet, you're going to just save so much headaches, because like what I've seen is someone might have 5 boats with blue cushions, and that's the one on the booking engine, and then there's one that has brown cushions, and they think that they're renting the blue cushion one. They get to the marina and they have the brown one, and they're like, I didn't rent this one, even though it's the exact same one. Maybe it's a year different or whatever, slightly different trim, but it essentially becomes kind of a bait and switch scenario, where it ends up leaving the customer not as happy with the experience, even if it's a better boat. So it just makes sense that the uniformity of the fleet is so much better. The other thing that I was thinking about when you were talking about the parts is that there's a lot of things that you could stock up on. Fuel filters, you could stock up on like certain things that are often changed out really quite often, and so it just makes sense to do that. From an overall business standpoint, Rob, could you touch on like where you look at the overall health of the fleet? From when are you going to be, you said 3 years, like is that just a flat 3 years, or is there certain things to look for when we're like, okay, we probably should start offloading these boats?
Yeah. So real quick, I just want to go back to the parts situation that you brought up, and then I'll get into that question.
Okay.
So as far as Marco brought up, maintenance or having parts in stock is a huge thing for your maintenance schedule. And just like Brad just brought up, if you are running the same type of motors and the same brand, a lot of them use a universal fuel filter, a universal, oil filter, those types of things. So you can have a whole shelf of that to do your maintenance and stick to your maintenance schedule, which will get you a lot longer, longer lasting experience with your unit. I've had boats that have had 2,000 hours on them and never had an issue with them. So, every 50 hours, you just want to change the fuel filter, make sure you change lower unit grease. And also you want to change your oil and your oil filter as well. So as far as that is concerned, Marco made some great points, and so did Brad. And then what was the other subject?
So from like a depreciation standpoint, bookkeeping or whatever, there's that side of things. But like, what are some of the signs that you should start thinking about trading in? Is it just 3 years, or is it, like this thing is consistently backfiring, or whatever? Like, what are those things that you look for?
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that. Thanks. Anyways, I like to look at 3 years as a general time frame. However, I've ran boats for 5 years, and I've ran them for less than 3 years, and other equipment. It all depends. If you're renting sleds, like how many times has that sled hit a tree, or how many times has somebody hit a rock bar with my boat, and took out a lower unit? How many times have I had to replace those types of things? If it's been a few times, you might want to try to get rid of it in, 1 or 2 years. If you have a UTV that's been rolled over, 5 times, you might want to think about getting rid of it. Those are the type of factors you look at. But in general, major accidents and major damage is not an everyday thing on a rental unit. So hopefully that's not the case. You don't have people just running around destroying your things. So I do look at 36 months of a time to look at to start to flip whatever it is that you're running. There are some people out there that turn over their fleet every year, and I never found that to be extremely profitable. I think you want to get as much as you can out of your unit, especially these days for what they cost. You have to run them for at least 3 years to be profitable.
Get the most juice out of the squeeze.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, great. All right. So one final thought on all of this is that we go from acquiring the fleet, offloading the fleet, everything in between. With all of that in mind, can you give some parting tips to us about some of the things that you've seen over the past 20 years of doing this?
Rapid fire tips. Number one, make sure your time slots are even. Okay, run an 8-hour day, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, 10 to 6, and 11 to 7. Don't run at 8 o'clock in the morning and pick you up at 8 o'clock the next morning. That doesn't give you enough time to clean your fleet, make sure everything's back in order, and then get it back out to the other customer. If you're going to do a single day, should be same day out, same day return. As far as maintenance is concerned, every 50 hours on everything from UTVs, snowmobiles, personal watercraft, all the way through whatever you're running on your boat in your rental fleet. As far as fuel is concerned, always non-ethanol. Doesn't matter what you're running. That'll save you a lot of headaches down the road. If you're running ethanol fuel, you're going to get varnish in your fuel system, and that's just going to give you headaches. If you have a bunch of lakes in your area and a bunch of trailheads, offer delivery and charge the customer. They're not afraid to pay. It's a convenience, and they pay for the convenience every time. Bring it right to their doorstep, check them out, make them happy, and pick them up at the same place you dropped them off. As far as insurance is concerned, always make sure you have plenty of insurance. I like to go through Markel or Evolution Insurance. They always seem to keep you covered. And then just, if you can, always make sure you keep a cover on the boat, or keep the rental unit inside. If you do have a storage facility, put it inside. Don't leave it out in the weather. It's never good for any boat, whether it's a snowmobile or a UTV. You always have to get it into a place where it's dry. Boats sitting out in the rain is never good. It's going to tear up your whole interior. People are going to sit down and get their butts wet. They're not going to be happy with the rental from the jump. I personally used to run 2 14,000 square foot warehouses where I would have all my boats lined up perfectly in every warehouse, clean, dry, let them dry for the night, even if they got wet, and then go out the next morning. That's the way I like to do it. I think a clean, reliable unit is the best way to grow your business.
That's great. Yeah. So on that note, I think we're going to say goodbye on this episode, but stay tuned for a lot more to come. So thanks for everyone for listening.